Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we are taking a look at the Serpent Hunter. This is a weapon that you find on a corpse in Volcano Manor in Rykard's boss room. I'm not going to put an image on screen because it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just kind of right there on the left as you walk in. As far as this weapon is concerned, though, it is very fun to use. I thoroughly enjoyed playing with this one. It's probably the best weapon in its class for a strength build, but let's take a look at this weapon together. Getting started, requirements for using the weapon, there are none. It does not have a specific strength or dexterity requirement, and that's a great thing. Other than that, the weapon weighs 12 units. At plus 10, it has a physical base damage of 271, an A scaling in strength, and an E scaling in dexterity. It will have the skill Great Serpent Hunt on, and that is what you're stuck with, but that's okay because it's a lot of fun to use, and there's some really good stuff going on with it. The best thing about the skill, though, is that it just has a monstrous amount of hyper armor. In the last fight, you saw me use the skill and actually hyper armor through a Storm Stomp and get the trade because I was able to hyper armor through it. No one really expects you to be able to hyper armor through Storm Stomp because it's really, really hard to do, and this is one of the few weapons I've actually been able to do it with. So that's quite nice. Other than that, though, the pros of the weapon. Damage on it, it's pretty great. With that, of course, it does have the benefit of working with the Spear Talisman on the majority of its attacks. The only ones that come to mind that it would not work with would be the R2s, given that they are a sweeping attack as opposed to a thrust. So, that makes sense. Aside from that, the weapon is actually great at chasing people down, as are most weapons that have thrusting attacks for their running attack. One of the nice things with this one, though, is that its running R2 attack actually has multiple hits that it deals, and surprisingly, good tracking. You can actually use its running R2, and it will slightly turn towards your opponent, so if they roll sideways as you're running after them, there's a decent chance, depending on the angle they roll at, you might even still be able to catch them. So it works quite well. Other than that, the damage on the weapon does actually stack on its skill with the Shard of Alexander and the Spear Talisman. So you can get some absolutely insane hits with this if you are able to land Great Serpent Hunt as a counter hit. It's quite hard to do, but if possible, you can definitely one-shot people with it. So just try to do that, but good luck landing the hit. I've landed Great Serpent Hunt a number of times. I don't think I've ever landed on someone who had full health. I may have been able to kill someone if I had in one shot, but I have not had that luxury yet. So it's something to aim for. Aside from that, the biggest pro of the weapon, I would say, is probably the fact that it requires nothing to wield it. You can just slap it on any build, and it will deal decent damage, even if you don't have much in the way of a strength investment, because it's got a decent amount of base damage. I wouldn't say it's completely viable at all levels for all builds, but if you're able to get this thing on a lower level character and feel like upgrading it a bit, it'll serve you well for a while, even without a strength investment, so keep that in mind. One other thing I do like to do with this weapon is I do like to use the first part of Great Serpent Hunt as a bait. A lot of people don't expect that it actually has a follow-up, and who would be crazy enough to go for a secondary attack like that that's so slow? The thing is, because you have so much hyper armor, though, if they do come in on you to, punish your missed hit with the first part of the skill, then you've got a very good chance of hitting them with the follow-up. So keep that in mind when you're using it. Try and use it as a bait, and see if you can punish someone for trying to punish you. Play a little bit of mind games with them. Now, moving into the cons of the weapon, there are a couple. The biggest issue I see with it is that it's not super quick. It's not a very fast weapon Compared to a regular spear, you're going to have to be a little more mindful of when you attack with it. It is relatively easy to dodge, so you really do want to aim for going for those counter hits. Let your opponent really initiate or play very defensively with the weapon. That is really the best way to use it. Other than that, though, the weapon actually is the shortest weapon in its class, so that is another con of the weapon. That is a downside, but I think it more than makes up for it. Overall, it's a fun weapon to use. It's very reliable on strength builds. I do think it is probably one of the best in its class for a strength build. The only other one that really comes to mind is the lance, and that's more of a quality weapon, to be honest. So it's kind of hard to say. It'll serve you well, the lance, on a strength build. But if you're on a strength build, the Serpent Hunter is really the one you want. So overall, fun to use, thoroughly enjoyable. It's a great time. Right there was a good example of me tracking towards my opponent as he rolled around sideways. He was able to get away because, like I mentioned earlier on, the attacks on its running R2 are multi-hit attacks. The final hit in the chain deals the majority of the damage, like most other weapons with multi-hit in this game, so that's something to be mindful of. You won't always get lucky with it, but it is good at keeping the pressure on your opponent, so keep that in mind. That said, that's all I've got to say. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. As far as what's coming next, there are a couple that I do have in mind. I was thinking that the next time we'd be taking a look at something along the lines of Death's Poker or the Dragon King's Cragblade. Maybe both of them together. That could be fun, but we'll have to wait and see. That said, there's one fight left after this one. Thank you all for stopping around. I hope you guys enjoyed it, found it helpful in one way or another. Please do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's super helpful for the channel, and I really do appreciate it. But that's all I've got. So again, thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you all next time.